Okay, hi guys. So why don't generic approaches work for back pain, and why can they sometimes actually make things worse? So it's just like a little bit of a practical example here based on kind of the nuances that we pick up with thorough investigation before we start the actual rehab plan. So we'll use a common example. So probably a pretty common injury is to have sciatic-like pain, so pain down one leg or the other, which could be like a numbness, tingling or burning kind of pain. That's caused from a disc bulge or a herniation. So a disc bulge or herniation was caused by excessive compressed flexion cycles, which delaminated the annulus fibrosus around the disc, forced out the material from the nucleus in the disc out towards the back, and it's either a bulge or it's finally ruptured into a herniation, so that you've squeezed kind of the toothpaste. So obviously common sense would say if we've done too much compressed flexion, we then want to spend some time in extension. So those familiar with the work of McKenzie will understand the idea of using like a McKenzie kind of cobra position, that we spend that time in extension. The idea is that it then pulls that material back into the disc to either help lessen that herniation or significantly reduce the size of that bulge. So in theory, we then have less contact on that nerve root that was coming from that bulge herniation in the first place. Which sounds great on paper, and it definitely does work as a principle. There's a couple of other things we need to consider before we jump straight on that kind of bandwagon or approach. So when we talk about nuances, for example, the McKenzie method, coming up into that kind of full prone cobra position, or maybe even being manipulated into that position by a chiropractor or an osteopath, works wonderfully to that degree of extension, so long as we've got at least 80% of our disc height left. So why 80%? So those from the work of Professor McGill will know that it was a study where he looked at if you had less than 80% of your disc height left, what actually happens at the back is that now our facet joints, because that significant amount of disc height has gone, the facet joints now, when we go into full extension, don't quite have enough space to clear each other without causing irritation. So you go in with a disc bulge, we're using the McKenzie method to heal the bulge, but in actual fact, because we've got less than 80% of the disc height left, we start to irritate those facet joints and they become inflamed. We now develop another problem because we've kind of gone too far the other way and caused a secondary problem. So although the disc bulge might start to heal and settle down, you're now starting to get irritation around the facet joints, which is going to make you extension intolerant, and that can also put pressure on that sciatic nerve. So what we need to do is, if we're testing the initial stages, we discover we have an active disc bulge or herniation that irritates sciatic pressure. We've done that with like a compressed slump test. We then need to test extension, and we can do it both standing and lying down to see what that person's tolerance is like for extension. And usually we find that although we can do a full-blown, McKenzie kind of prone cobra for some people, for other people it might be too much. So to get 80% of the benefits with only 10% of the risk, we might do more of a disc recovery position, which could just be, for some people initially, 2 hands underneath their forehead. It might be 1 fist, or it might even be 2 fists in their chin, where they can use that passive approach from McKenzie, just with a lot less risk, get the benefit of helping to restore the natural shape of the disc and pull the material back in to kind of lessen the bulge and herniation. But we've now got less risk of clacking those facet joints together and causing a secondary problem. So again, we have all these principles and approaches, but we must always, get real clarity with each person, each injury, to see what the nuances are. And the more we can get an understanding of those little nuances, the more success we'll have long term, but also it kind of sets the rules of the game for the client and the person going forward, so they better understand how to manage and keep themselves out of trouble. So that's why, there's a lot of frustrating things. We get back pain, every man and his dog will give you lots of different advice. And for some people it can really help, for other people it won't, and for other people it will make them worse. It's because of these injury nuances and specifics that we've got to really understand that investigative stage first of all, before we propose a solution, start putting a plan together. So again, the more clarity we can get on the specific types of mechanical damage present, better chance we have of selecting the right tools at the right time for the right person to solve that problem.